Okay.
I was just
yeah. Well, I was recording something, and I don't know when I started recording. I could have been recording for a day or an hour. But I think I uploaded everything from last night, so it couldn't be that. It'd be interesting. Let me see if I can find out. Yeah, your sound sounds good, Frank.
Thank you.
Apparently I started it today at 4:27, which I don't know. I mean, it must have been just an accident. But we are now going as well. So let's see. We are sitting at 75 people. Samantha says Friday. It is certainly Friday. Most of the day.
Thank goodness.
Exactly. $79 participants. This is a bad time of the day for my green screen because we're just seeing the sun kind of peeking through the leaves of a tree outside my basement window. Most of the day I have consistent lighting, poor lighting, but consistent. At this particular time of day, it's the only time I get sun through this window. And,
if you position yourself right, you can get yourself a tan.
Exactly. I got to dance around the, like right there. That's dance around the sunlight, the sunbeams. What time are we? I'll give it a few more minutes. So I think the tree out there. No, that one's a different tree. My neighbors have a nice tall maple tree that casts shade onto my lawn at about 5 till sunset on summer days. So it's where I tend to put my I tend to put my hammock out there. But that last windstorm we had come through here, it split the tree, and so now it's it doesn't have long to live. They're going to take it down. It's my favorite tree on the entire block because it's the one that gives me shade in the summertime.
I remember at my house in 2006 or something, we had this giant 100-foot tall oak tree that was struck by lightning and half the tree was dead.
Yeah.
And it was like that for many more years, probably until 2011 or something. And at some random day, the tree just completely fell over. This massive 100-foot tree where the dead side just... Actually, no, it was the side that was still alive was too heavy, so it fell over.
Yeah, no support in the... Yeah, we're hoping to avoid that, because if it falls where it's pointed, it's going to fall onto an empty part of my lawn, so as long as my hammock's not actually out, we're okay. But if it falls the other way...
Laying in it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's some days this summer would have been okay. Get out of teaching the arch, at least. All right, I think we're at 107 people, Frank. What do you think?
I think that's good enough.
All right.
Friday.
Who do we have going? Is it you first, or? Yep.
Yes.
So welcome to RCOS, Rensselaer Center for Open Source, on October 3rd, 2020. I guess before we get started, I do want to throw out, I posted that thing from Professor Morthy, and it looks like the Google, the last link, which is a post application thing, at least if I'm reading that correctly. It looks like that one's breaking, but that was where they tell you to sign up for interest in Google's infrastructure, Synthra, or whatever it was. So I'll touch base with Morthy and see. He was the director of RCOS before, so he still gets a lot of emails from these places. I'll touch base with him and see if he can shed some light on that. But until there's not really much, it's a message we got from Morthy, or from Google through Morthy, and I don't really have much that I can do about making that link work. I know that was in one of the chats. So, all right, Frank, at your leisure.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Happy Friday. Only a couple things to go through today. Of course, we're going to go through the upcoming workshops for next week. Then Professor Turner will go over some contribution guidelines to give you an idea of what we look for in commits, since that's the biggest part of your grade. Then I will talk about using GitHub Wikis. Mainly that will be for project leads, but that's something that you'll see that everyone can work on. And then we'll get to attendance. Next slide. So upcoming workshops, we have some interesting topics. The next week or so, we have Bill doing Amazon Web Services on the 28th at noon. Hunter doing Intro to Dockerizing All the Things on the same day at 3 p.m. And Rory doing a workshop on React.js on November 4th at 4 p.m. And if this changes or any schedules change, we'll post this on the server. Keep an eye out. We'll remind you what workshops are coming up the day of or around then, and we will have recordings be posted on the server as well. Next slide.
So I guess this one's me. So we're at about a halfway point of the semester. I mean, I think today is drop day. So if you're going to drop any courses, including this one, this is when you want to do it. But one of the things we want to make sure you guys are moving towards is actually getting in some open source contributions. And we talk a lot about commits. Commits are not the only type of open source contributions, but they're kind of the most common. And we're asking you to put links to your commits or to your open source contributions in your status updates. And we're going to ask you to do, by the way, we it didn't make it into the slides, but we actually put up a gradable on a mid-year summary. I'll talk about that at the end of this, I think, and maybe even pop that into the slides. But we want you to, so the whole idea here is we want you to document your progress through the semester. And posting these into your status update isn't so much to help us right now, it's to help you document what you've done so that in your mid-year summary and so that in your final summary that we'll ask you to do at the end of the semester, you actually have all of the stuff that you've done directly accessible and available for you to pop in to your summary so that we can pop into your summary, read it, and actually click on the links and get to different places. So what we want, right, let's just go out of here for just a second. Let's get out of here for just a second. So if we go to GitHub, right, what we're looking for is we're not necessarily looking for, right, this is a little garbage placeholder repository that I set up. We're not looking for this, right? We don't want this link here because this link here gets us to a repository that probably has multiple people, if you're on a bigger project, contributing to it. What we're actually interested in is what you did personally. And we're not interested in the videos you've watched. I'll talk about how to go about videos and putting in, documenting your learning objectives. But instead, let's kind of look at just what we want on the raw link level. This doesn't do us any good. We come in here, now we still have to look through this and see all the places where you contributed. What we're mainly interested in is, well, if you can get us to this page, right, which lists all of your contributions, that's a good one to give us, right? This link, we can come in here and we can say, click there, right? There's the contribution. We can see what I did. It wasn't very impressive, but it was something. Or I can come over here and I can click here and I can say, okay, I've changed a little bit of something. I fixed a typo. These are the types of links we're looking for. And we're looking for these links because they give you your name, they give what you actually did, and they let us see, you know, what kind of progress are you making? What are you actually changing? What are you coming in? So, you know, this link works, right? This gets us right to this page. If you can get all of your links together in one nice little bundle like this, this works. These links over here, right? If we copy that link, Control C, Control T, Control V, right? That'll get us right back to that commit, right? All of these things that bring us right to someplace important actually work. And the whole concept here is we want to be able to click on that and just go through your links quickly and evaluate, you know, did you do something? Were you making progress? Have you committed something? Have you contributed something to open source? I'm talking a lot about this in terms of code submissions or repository submissions. You can also submit to the wiki, and I think Frank's going to talk about that as well. So if there's an unknown wiki here, you can contribute to issues. So if you want to come down here and click on, you know, this issue, I authored this issue, right? Come in here, give us this link, Control C plus Control V, right? That takes us right to an issue. That issue is an open source contribution, right? So give us those links and let us pop down through here and do a quick evaluation. Okay, so I'll get to that in just a second, Megan. The idea is we want you to stockpile these in your status updates, and then at the points of the semester when we ask you to go through and pull things out, you'll have them available to you, and you can just go through, grab all of the links, pop them into your final report or your mid-year review, and you'll be all set to go. Let's go back to here for a second. There are a number of different types of commits. You're all going to want to make code commits because that's what computer science people like. These can be links to pull requests. They can be links to commits like I showed you. If they're going to the main repository, you know, give us a link. If they're going to your fork, give us a link to your fork. If you have something that doesn't quite get pulled into the main repo, but you've come in and you've forked the repo and you have contributions in your repo that you're trying to get moved into the main, they just haven't made it, give us the ones in your own repo. Or if you're on a branch, give us the ones in the branch. Branches in particular are very hard for us to find, right? So when we come into here, you can see that there's only one branch. It's master, or there's a research branch, right? It's really hard to kind of go in and see when I try to look at the commits on these different branches. I can't come in, you know, if you give me a link to the repository, for example, I could come in to the insights and I could get contributors and I could click on Wes Turner and see his 3 commits, but commits to a branch don't show up here. So it's really hard for me to come in and, right. If I do the research, all the commits come in, not just mine. So there's not a good way for me to search on commits to a single fork. So that's why we want you to come through and make it as easy for us as possible. If you're on a fork, if you're on a branch, you know, give us commits, give us these links directly to your commits, and we will take them into consideration. We want to know that you're working. We want to know that you're contributing stuff out there. Not everything that gets contributed gets immediately accepted, and some of it takes some work to get there, but we want you to kind of do this. We also, you know, if you're getting away from code commits, documentation commits are also pretty important. And again, these can be either to your fork or to the main repo, depending upon what kind of documentation they are. what kind of what kind of contribution you're making. A lot of our projects have documentation that tell people how to install their systems. If you are a newcomer to a project and you're trying to install the system and you're having problems, that's a good opportunity to put in a fix to the documentation, or at least comments explaining where things go wrong and why you had problems and how you eventually got around it. Because if you're having problems, chances are the next person through will have the same types of issues as well. So, please, if your project has documentation and you're just learning, and particularly if you're trying to follow their documentation to get up and running and you're having issues, make documentation commits. If you're doing this for an extended period and you're trying to learn by watching videos or by learning other resources, watching a video isn't an open source contribution, right? You're taking somebody else's contribution and using it, which is good. We like that. It's acceptable. But what you need to do then is you need to come in and maybe in your repository or in your fork of the repository, this is going to depend upon how your project lead wants to actually do things, how they actually manage their project. You may need to come in and do something like make a contribution in your own repository that says, I am learning React.js, and here's where you would put in the links. I viewed, page, the video at, and give a link, and then write something here that's going to help the next person. Important notes. So keep like a lab notebook or a journal, and this needs to be made public in some way. Either post it to your fork of the repository, post it to the main repository under a documentation directory if your PM allows it or your project lead allows it, but make it available publicly. And if you post it to your own repository, make sure your repository has an open source license so other people are allowed to view this. This should become a library of information for people who are joining the project. So don't write this from the standpoint of a book report. Write this from the standpoint of, look, I'm trying to learn this thing. The next person who comes along needs to learn this thing as well. Here's a roadmap. Here's what you should get out of this, and here's how it's going to help you as you meet the next stage of the project. So don't just write, like I said, this isn't just a book report. This isn't just a catalog of videos you watched. This should be some research. How did you find if you found a bunch of new websites or you found a particularly good resource, put it in there, explain why it's good, build up a big bibliography, and make that bibliography available publicly. In most cases, I would like this to be part of the main repository, but I know that if you're working with an external group, that's probably not possible. If you're working here, sometimes we're trying to keep things clean. Put it into a fork of the repository under a documentation directory or under a getting started directory, etc. Just make this publicly available, make it good, and there's no reason why you can't do this right from day one on your project, because if you're learning, you should be learning for a reason, right? Don't just go and spend a semester watching videos because they're fun, which is okay in general, but we want you to actually be contributing back to open source. That means you have to put these in context and you have to make them useful to a broader community. And then, finally, I pointed out the issues and the repository tracker, the issue tracker, are also valid forms of contributions. So use those and give us pointers to those as well. Frank, I'm going to let you go ahead first. Is that
Thank you.
the next thing?
Yep. Okay. So somewhat building off of that, there are a couple projects, especially those on the larger side, that often require a lot of setup for new members. So this might have happened to you. You might be a member on a large project, and you might take a long time to be able to even run the project locally, and there might not be many resources for that available. So project leads, the responsibility is kind of on you, or actually not kind of, the responsibility is on you for creating resources to enable your members to get started and work with your project. Because when you accept members to work on your project, they're not just helping you, you're helping them. You're giving them the opportunity to work with you and learn with your project. So a Github repositories wiki works pretty well for creating these resources for new members. So we're going to look at the Late Wiki, which is a project I ran in RCOS for 4 or so semesters as an example. So in the next few slides, I have screenshots. So next slide, please. So here we have a screenshot of the homepage of the Late Wiki. And as you can see on the sidebar, I'd organized this into a couple, well, I had 30 pages here, but mainly a couple different pages that I was able to direct new members to, existing members to, whenever they got stuck on something. So I noticed in the span of a couple semesters, the same questions would be asked every time. And I came to realize what is the most confusing for new members to grasp, new members to learn, and all that. So I started writing that down. Next slide, please. And I went a little overboard with some of these. So, you know, if you create a wiki for your project, you don't have to go to this extent. But I found something like this very useful. So firstly, you might find it very useful to create a wiki page where you list the stack that your project uses and links to the official documentation for all of those things. So for Late, it was a single page application using Vue with Koa on the back end and MongoDB as the database. So lots of people were unfamiliar with all 3 of those or some of those. So I listed every single thing we used here with links to directly to the documentation. So this makes it easier for everyone since you no longer have to spend time answering the same questions over and over. You can direct people to this page. It also became super useful for me just to have kind of bookmarks. Next slide. The most important or most useful page I created was a local development setup guide. So for some JavaScript projects, as I'm sure many of you have come to learn, really tricky to get up running, especially when you have a database as well, and you have all different components and all different dependencies and all that. So I took a lot of time to create a step-by-step resource or step-by-step guide on how to go from cloning my repository and getting it up and running locally with the secrets in the .env file. And I went even as far to explain what editor we used. I said we're going to use VS Code with these extensions, and kind of taking the time to standardize something like that. The development environment proved really useful. You'll probably come across members who have very strong preferences for different things, and you don't have to force anyone to do anything, but you might find it useful to standardize a couple things like that. And if you want to take it all the way, you can do something like what I did in that first step, a quick start script, and write a bash script that your members can run in their terminal, a little insecurely, as you can see, but it works, which will automate the entire process for them. So I was able to do the script, and admittedly, I did it pretty late into my time running late. Oh, pun intended. But it was able to do the entire setup guide in a couple of minutes versus having people have to go through those step by step. Okay, next slide.
Give me just a second because somehow we got moved on to somebody else. There we go. Okay.
Last but not least, a super useful page as well. Oh, I think I might have duplicated this page, so it might come up twice. For members new to RCOS and new to open source development, it's often very confusing, and I certainly found it very confusing, figuring out how do you contribute to a project. Does this project want you to create branches and pull requests? What are those supposed to look like? What's the process of doing that, especially for people new to Git? I highly recommend project leads take the time to write down somewhere, document how you want your members to contribute to your project. And if you are a new project lead and you're unfamiliar with the ins and outs of Git and GitHub yourself, this would be a really important time to learn how to do that and document that. Really quick, I just saw a question from Alice. Where can one find GitHub Wikis? When you create a repository, it may or may not be enabled by default. You can turn it on in the settings for a repository, and it will appear as a tab. And you can just add pages and modify pages from there. So yeah, I think it's under, right there, under features.
About the, like how should new people contribute to repos, I think there's an option to add a
Contributing. Yes.
.md file.
Yes, that's a good point. So there is an official or kind of the standard for that. That's a good place to put it as well. And contributing.md, a markdown file for listing these things as well. So definitely, that's probably a better spot for it than the wiki page. But this was more of a, yeah, maybe I didn't know about that at the time. I think I have both, but that's a good point. But here I list everything that I expect new members to do when they are trying to work on an idea, from how to figure out how to choose what to work on, how to create a branch for it, how to run it, how to commit it, and how to push it. And those are the only things I took screenshots of, but feel free, we're gonna post the slides in a second to look through the late wiki for the other pages. I had even started creating resources for learning some of the stacks we use. Since in my spare time, I teach web development. So I was able to take some time to create a tutorial on Git, on web basics, on HTML, and so on. And also on the sidebar, you'll see I drew out diagrams for the front end and back end of the application to give people a visual idea of how the project worked together. Oh yeah, these are not links, but you can find that on the late wiki. I also had a member volunteer as an open source contribution to record a video of setting up the project and posting that in the repository, which was super useful as well, especially since we had members with different operating systems. So those are, well, next slide, please, as a conclusion. So this is all because we see these same issues with large and even medium-sized projects each semester, where new members end up realizing that after a couple months, they're still not even able to get their projects running locally on their computer. They don't know how to contribute. They don't even know how to set everything up. This should not be the case. Most of the responsibility of that is on the project leads. So please, if you haven't already, take the time to document yourself, or give your members the opportunity to document what stack you use, documentation links, a setup guide to get running locally, and a contributing.md file at the very least. And honestly, these are much more interesting and sometimes more useful than code commits. So don't think that a semester of doing documentation is any less valuable than a semester of doing code contributions.
It can oftentimes be more valuable because you're enabling more people to contribute.
Definitely.
So.
And that's my spiel.
Okay. I'm just going to throw out one more thing. Having the contributing guidelines in the wiki is absolutely fine, and then you can just have a link in the contributing, in an MD file that points to the wiki. So, there are multiple ways to do these things. No one correct solution. The great thing about Git is that anything you put in an MD file can be rendered right in the Git interface. So if you know markup or markdown, not markup, markdown, you can make some relatively nice looking documents relatively quickly without very much overhead. I want to do one more thing. I thought we had this in here, but apparently I got distracted, and maybe other people as well. Do for today. We're going to start going over, I'll say for this week. We have we have attendance. I'll get to that in just a second. We have our status update. And then we've also opened up a mid-year review. For those of you who haven't done RCOS before, the mid-year review, we ask you to give us your links for what you've contributed so far, And we understand that this, for some of you, this is just a few days. This isn't a long time past when you've actually started contributing. So we understand that.
Okay, cool.
We understand that this may be relatively small. We do want you to put your links out there. We want you to put them in a text file or in a PDF file or something that we can PDF or Markdown would actually be really preferred. Submit them to Submittee. You've got a week to do it. You should just be able to go through your status updates and grab whatever you have, add in anything you put in this week. And the idea is we're just going to have the mentors, your group mentors, go over them and review them, and just kind of give you a feel for what you're actually accomplishing so far this semester. Because a lot of what a lot of our evaluation has to be on things you put, your open source contributions, things you put out into the wild. And to do that, we need to look at the contributions, and we want to give you a stop here where you can start kind of step back and start considering what you're going to do and what you're going to continue to do. I know there was a question earlier about how much work we expect for RCOS. For those of you who are taking it as a 4-credit course, right, that's pretty much, we would expect you to do what you would do for your average course. So you figure if you're spending 2 hours a week in these RCOS meetings, another 2 hours with your small groups, that's about 4 hours per week. We would expect you to be doing 8 to 10 hours of effort per week at a minimum. So you need to be putting in about twice what you're spending in these meetings, 8 to 10 hours a week of additional time is really about what we're looking at. Now, depending on what you're doing, the problem is that sometimes how much you can accomplish in those time periods are different. So we do try to not be completely pedantic about the number of lines of commits or the number of commits. We're kind of looking for 2 to 3 commits per week, moderate, medium-sized commits. They don't have to be huge. But that's kind of what what our guidance is. We will talk to your, we will talk to your group managers, your group mentors, and everything, and we will get, feedback from them as to what you're doing. We do have some understanding for people who are just getting started. So it's just. That's kind of where we're looking for going forward. I think that's all I had to speak about this one. We do have project meetings. The first one was supposed to be at 5 for RPI housing. We're running a little bit late. We'll get to these as soon as we can. But if we're a little bit late getting to you, we shouldn't have to take half an hour for each of these, probably. But these are the ones that are signed up for today. If you haven't signed up for your project meeting with Professor Kuzmin and I, please please fill out the form and send it. It should be in the Discord. 5 o'clock is RPI housing. 5:30 is pipeline. 6 o'clock is taper. We'll get started with RPI housing as soon as we shut down this meeting. I think. I'm going to hang out for just a few minutes. There's a couple of people who are asking to talk to me. If you guys can send me links about where I'm kind of scrolling through the if you guys can just message me on Discord, I'll try to grab you guys as quickly as possible. I think there's at least 2 people who wanted to talk. I do need to get to these other meetings as well. But if you hit me on Discord, I will try to hit you up as soon as we get a break. I guess that's it. Let's go to attendance now, so we can kind of wrap today up. Unless there's something else, Frank, Olivia, Steve,
just as a by the way, I'm not sure if it's been mentioned yet or not, but today is the drop deadline.
Today is the drop deadline.
Just make sure that people are aware of that.
I don't think any of you are in trouble. I think I sent out a very few number of EWSs just to people who were maybe not all that successful at making status updates, but remember that we drop 4 status updates and 2 attendances, and you can make up another 2 attendances on using bonus days. So, there shouldn't be any problems getting caught up. But just to make sure that you understand where we kind of stand in the semester. If you're using Submittee, it's drop day to day. If you're not using Submittee, there's the little venue QR code. I will be uploading this video again, just like always, to Venue and to YouTube. All right.
Reminder to whoever is hosting team meetings, whoever got added to Venue, make sure you add your students to that section.
And there's a question about a problem with a computer. Who do you email about the situation? Please, email Professor Kuzmin and myself. My Discord is Professor Turner, I think. It should be WD Turner. I don't know. I have no idea what my Discord handle is. This is me, Professor Turner. I guess that's who I am. Number 3104. How do I find that, Frank?
If you click on your profile picture, and I guess it doesn't show for you, in the bottom left, if you click on your name, it should show you your number. I don't know why it doesn't for you.
Because it doesn't like me, man.
Oh, you have streamer mode on. Okay, so
I don't
it's
even know
hidden on purpose.
Is that what that is?
To protect your identity.
I don't care. My identity, I'm not Superman. There we go. Professor Turner, number 3104. Yeah, so if you just reach out to me, I'll do my best to try to meet up with everybody today. We do have 3 meetings going on, and the last one's scheduled to start at 6. So it may be a little bit after that, but I will try to wrap this all up tonight. All right? Streamer mode enabled by default if it detects OBS. I am definitely OBSing. All right. Any more questions? If not, I'm going to kind of shut this down for today so that we can get on with our Discord meetings. Not our Discord meetings, our
really quick question. Philip is asking, it says that attendance for RCOS is required for at least 50% of all workshop sessions.
No, that is not the case. I don't know.
They link to the RCOS handbook. That is under development.
Yeah, so
we're reworking that.
Yeah, it's one bonus. Right now, it's 1 bonus session, and you can attend 2 more to make up for missed attendances, and then you can attend other ones just because they're really good. All right. Anything else? If not, let's. I'll pop this up again. It's drop space day. Both D's are capitalized, or the little venue thing, and. Have a nice day, and we will get on with the rest of our meetings.